Good evening, folks, and thank you all for joining us on another Nightmare Hunters podcast. In the house tonight with me is Robbie Jed Rains, my brother from another mother, and hopefully we're going to bring you guys a good show tonight. We're going to be talking about the legend and history behind the Headless Horseman. It's more than just a story, folks. There's a lot to it. So before we get started, we're going to jump into a couple things. Robbie, how the hell are you doing right off the top?
I'm doing good. How are you?
All live and kicking so far, but it's early.
That's true.
Unfortunately, we won't have Doc tonight. He's filling orders and Steve's at work, so it's just me and this yahoo over here.
Yep, just us.
Well, Robbie's right out the gate again. We ain't even got his most recent book edited and published yet, and he's already started another project. So he's really moving right along. He's making me want to have to light a fire under my own butt, get busy. Making me look like a slouch.
Yep, 4.5 chapters into the next one.
I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us tonight. We already got quite a crowd in here. Chat is just flying. We sure appreciate you guys joining us, and I think you guys are going to enjoy this one tonight. We've been thinking about this one for a while, but it gets a little deeper than people realize. I'm sure most of you, especially those of you who might have watched the Disney version or some of the television / movie events that they've made out of it, from Washington Irving's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And in that story, a school teacher named Ichabod Crane is chased and ultimately, I guess, killed by a headless horseman who's riding a black charger, missing his head, throwing flaming pumpkins. And allegedly, he was a Hessian soldier during the American Revolution who lost his head in a battle and was constantly out looking for it. And we could talk about that the story itself, for the rest of the night if we really wanted to. It is a good story, and it is a really great example of early American horror. Do you remember what year Washington Irving wrote that?
1820, I think.
18. Oh, that's earlier than I thought it was.
It's in the 1800s. I may be wrong.
I'm going to check the Googles.
It's on that thing that I sent to the co-host chat. Hold on, give me a second.
Originally was released in 1820.
Oh, that was right.
So it is a great example of early American horror. I mean, this came out shortly after the Civil War, the Revolutionary War. I mean, the Revolutionary War and all of that came to an end in the late 1700s. So this was, the Revolutionary War was still fresh in everybody's minds. Most of the United States wasn't even states at that point. So it's really, really a cool example of how, horror stories actually transcend history. It doesn't matter what part of history you're from. There are going to be tales of vampires and werewolves and all kinds of gruesome creatures that go bump in the night. But this is one of those great examples of the first written horror stories that really kind of haunted us. And I did like the Disney cartoon, but they of course had to water it down for children. Kind of like in Hunchback of Notre Dame, when the Disney version, nobody burned the Hunchback at the stake at the end of end of it like they did the book.
No. But even for Disney, though, it was still kind of dark.
It was creepy, even for Disney.
Not as much so as Washington Irving's story, but it was, there's still some creepy parts. I mean, the scene where Ichabod's going home and it starts chasing him down the bridge, and then he just kind of fades away. You don't really ever know. He just turns around and sees the flaming pumpkin coming at him. You never really know what happened. So,
but I've read the story, and the story itself is a lot more sinister than the Disney version, obviously. But Washington Irving's writing is very immersive. Even for a guy writing in 1820, the story is very. It's very visceral. It makes it almost feel like you were there. And it's kind of tough to imagine living life in a colonial village in the 1820s. But he really does do a good job of describing not only what the people were like, but the dwellings. And it's a really, really good short story.
and obviously he took liberties, but I think Tim Burton's movie followed more of that gothic and visceral story of that Washington Irving actually put out. Like I said, obviously there was differences because I don't think Ichabod wasn't a constable in New York.
No, he was a school teacher.
Yeah, but as far as the tone, I think that followed the tone of his book a lot more than most of the rest of them.
Did you ever watch that TV series?
On the CW, I think, who put it out.
I can't remember which.
No, was it CBS maybe? Or Fox?
Maybe I can't remember. I can't remember which one it was on.
I liked that. I mean, obviously it took liberties too, but I actually liked that show. That was a pretty good show. We're basically
Sleepy Hollow is what it was called.
Sleepy Hollow was the name of it. Ichabod was basically in the Revolutionary War, and through some kind of spell or something, he was put to sleep for however long, and then he woke in modern day times. And
I thought that show was really well written.
Yeah.
Thank you for the super chat there, Marcus.
Yeah,
Marcus Antonius said celebrates 14 months of membership. He said the Headless Horseman has been around since the Middle Ages in Europe. It's very much the legacy of old Anglo immigration to the Eastern Seaboard. It actually goes deeper than that, and we'll be getting into that here just shortly. Robin Ray had a question. I don't want to grab it before it gets too far past my chat window. She says, we moved recently to a rural place, mid-Tennessee, near the Cumberland River, and 2 different wildlife management areas. Heard a barred owl that sounded fake. Well, considering that area, with the amount of activities in that area, you might have heard something that isn't actually an owl, the proverbial 500-pound owl. But yeah, there are owls in that area, and you will hear them at night. But pay attention to it, because you can kind of spot the ones that aren't real, especially if it sounds like it's made with a set of lungs bigger than a horse. It turns out the lore behind the Headless Horseman goes much deeper than just Washington Irving. The various types of legends of Headless Horsemen and headless carriage drivers exist in Irish, Scottish, Welsh, English, German, and American folklore. Probably in other cultures as well, but those were when I searched Headless Horseman, those were the ones that came up, but I'm sure they exist under other names. In Irish folklore, they call it the Dullahan, or Dullashan, which depending on the pronunciation, the second one's more of the Gaelic pronunciation, but it basically means dark man. He's usually depicted as riding a horse and carrying his head underneath his arm. He's believed to be a dark fairy or dark fae. What do they call that? What do they call that? The dark fae. There's a word for it, and I just slipped I knew it. Started to say it, slipped my mind.
If Tyler was here, he'd know right.
Oh yeah.
He loves that stuff.
I cannot think of it off the top of my head. Yeah, it'll come to me at some point. But they believe it was dark fae. But in some versions of the story, they believe it was a Celtic god, Crom-Dubh, and he's a pretty intense fella. Supposedly carried a whip made of human spines. A extended, long, like bull whip, but it's made out of the spines of humans. And he was a harbinger of death. In fact, it said if he calls your name, you'll die instantly. Now, I don't know about you, but if I hear hoofbeats and somebody calling my name, that's probably not going to be a most pleasant evening on an old country road. But that would be freaking me out. But I have heard people tell me, hey, I was walking a trail out in the Mark Twain and I heard hoofbeats. I'm like, oh yeah, did you ever see a horse? He goes, no, we stopped and waited. We never saw a horse. And in other Celtic legends, there's a similar figure called the Gansian, which means without a head. And it's a headless driver of a black carriage called a coster badar. which means death coach or silent coach. This version's found usually throughout Britain and even here in the United States. In Scotland, it's usually seen along the Royal Mile of Edinburgh, where it collects the souls of the dead. There's a version of that here in the Ozarks, actually. Although it is supposedly comes after the Civil War. A fellow supposedly lost his head in a Civil War battle and rides back valleys and trails here in the Ozarks. And supposedly on certain nights at the moon's right, as the old saying goes, you can see a silhouette of a figure riding through the woods without a head. I've never personally seen it, but I've talked to folks that claim they have. They call it the Ozarks Hollow Man.
I wonder if Stoker took a little bit of inspiration for the carriage that Dracula drove.
Might have
for that, because that's exactly how he described that carriage. He didn't say anything about a headless driver, but the carriage itself basically was, a carriage of death. I mean,
but you got to remember Stoker's Irish, so he would have been well familiar with the legend. So it wouldn't have surprised me at all that he included elements of mythology or folklore in his own writing to enhance the creepiness.
You're like, ooh, I like that. I think Dracula would probably be driving or have something like that.
And I've always thought it was kind of odd that Stoker, being an Irishman, would write a story about a vampire from Romania, essentially, or Wallachia, when there's vampire mythology right there in Ireland. The Irish legend of Abertach, and he's a vampire. I mean, in every sense of the word. Supposedly extremely powerful, and supposedly he was buried once and escaped the grave. And when they buried him the second time, they pulled giant stones over the burial mound, and you can still to this day go to his grave, and they tell you not to disturb the stones for fear of Abertach rising.
Oh, that name sounds so familiar, DA.
Well, he might have got a mention or two in a recent book.
Maybe sounds a little familiar for other reasons too.
Yeah, they'll just have to wait and see what's coming out.
Yes, so.
Now, the Welsh version of the Headless Horseman, don't even ask me how to pronounce it. I'm going to take a stab at it, but it's going to be wrong. So if you're of Welsh origin, I'm sorry, because I'm going to butcher this. But in Welsh folklore, there's Headless Horsemen and woe women. Not just women, but women of woe. But same thing, Headless Horsemen, headless females. It's the Finwin Head on Pin, the headless woman who rides Cephal Heb un Pin, a horse without a head. Bryn Hall in it's a word about yay long with very few vowels. Lanny Modwi is said to have been haunted by a headless horseman and only stopped when one of the servants there discovered it was trying to give them a message, and it led to the discovery of a body buried on the grounds. The body was allegedly the illegitimate child of Lord Bryn. So the Welsh version looks like there's some sort of like messengers or they bring messages or they have unfinished business. What do you think of that?
Pretty dang creepy.
Yeah.
I think Tim Burton kind of pulled, for his movie, I think he kind of pulled multiple versions of this, because it seems like there was a lot of lore that from that movie that wasn't familiar to a lot of casual people that, I was just, I didn't know that part of it. I never heard that part of it. That wasn't in, the book or anything like that. So maybe he pulled a lot of inspiration from some of these other Like the thing with the with him, or with what's her name, when she was controlling the horseman because she had his head, and he would have to do her bidding, kind of like almost that kind of sort of like the messenger type thing to me. It's like you got this outside force that's controlling the horseman, and sent it, which they kind of hinted at a little bit in Sleepy Hollow, that somebody from the outside, or an outside force was controlling it, and could send it to do their bidding. Because if you, I think it was like fourth or fifth episode. And it's been a long time since I've seen it, but so I may be off. But there was one of those episodes towards the first of that show. They brought that up, that that somebody had to control the horseman. It wasn't just, kind of like in Washington Irving, or excuse me, the Disney thing. It just appeared. There was really no rhyme or reason to why it was there. It just, if you were at this bridge or that stretch of road, you had a chance of this thing coming after you. But no real, okay, stay away from that road. You ain't got to worry about it. They kind of delved in a little bit of, okay, if you piss somebody off and they are in control of this thing, they can send it after you, and it's not gonna mess with anybody else other than who its target is. Which, and they kind of hinted at that in the movie, or Tim Burton's movie. Because remember, if it was after Johnny Rico, what's his real name? Casper Van Dien. Johnny Rico, in Starship Troopers. Casper Van Dien. He played Brom.
Mm-hmm.
And it was after him.
Brom Bones.
Yep. And it kept just knocking Johnny Depp out of the way to get to him. And that's how he's like, it wasn't after me. It was after him. So that's how they kind of started piecing together that somebody controls it and sends it to the targets. I don't think Irving mentioned anything like that, did he?
Not that I recall. It's been a long time since I've read Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I need to check and see if I still got a copy of it in my books, because I wouldn't mind reading it again. It's just a short story. It doesn't take very long to read, but there is a lot of great detail in it. But playing on that, the Headless Horseman, or the Black Carriage, those myths seem to go hand in hand. There's a slightly different version of the Black Carriage story here in the United States. Lincoln's Death Train. There are people that through Pennsylvania, all from Washington, D.C. through Pennsylvania, all the way out to Illinois, on certain sections of old track, where people even to this day claim to see an old steam locomotive draped in black pass through silently. So that's just another version of that story, the Death Carriage.
Okay, Long Queen says he wasn't controlled in the book, so that's an element that maybe that they pulled from
maybe. And it's Tim Burton. He probably took some liberties too.
Oh yeah, but he also, maybe the show took that from the movie, because I think that movie was out before that show started. But still, that's multiple times that's kind of come up.
I need to watch that series again. It was good.
Yeah.
It was well thought out, and it really updated the legend. I liked it a lot. I found the Dark Fae. It was the Unseelie Fae.
I think a couple of people put that in the chat. It was just going by so fast, and we were talking, and I didn't get a chance.
Yeah, I haven't been able to keep up with the chat much.
So yeah, big up to chat. Y'all got it. Because
in German folklore, which most of the folklore comes from the Rhineland area along the Rhine River, the Headless Horseman kills its victims by touching them. They're believed to be revenants that were cursed to walk the earth until they atoned for their sins. Sometimes they would do good deeds for strangers, but wouldn't shake their hands. Instead, they would grab a tree branch that would wither and die. Another version is Der Kopfloser Ritter, the Headless Horseman, who warns the living of danger and would chase down the wicked to punish them. So in German, it's more of an avenging spirit, like a protector, but coming after the wicked, which is kind of cool. And maybe there was hints of that with the Washington Irving story, because he was chasing down people that he didn't like, obviously, but he was going after specific people.
Yeah. But
Arlen says here in Camden, South Carolina, one of our funeral homes has one of those horse-drawn carriages parked in front of it. Those are pretty neat. I thought about, if I had the money, like buying one of those old carriages and fixing it up and renting it out for funerals. Yeah, I think it'd be a really cool thing, since nobody does that anymore.
Yeah, that's a big thing in Charleston too, is those horse-drawn carriage tours, and there's a lot of them that do maybe not a lot of them, but I know there used to be that do the ghost tours in a horse-drawn carriage. That thing, going out at night in some of these supposedly haunted places in a horse-drawn carriage, that would be kind of spooky.
I've done a haunted hayride a few times where it's a big wagon pulled by like 4 or 6 horses. There's a bunch of hay bales and everybody gets on there and there's a storyteller telling you. That was pretty cool. There was one that did one year up by Rolla. And there was another one around here somewhere. I can't remember. I think it was down by, I want to say Marionville or Cassville. I can't remember where it was, but I went and did that one year on Halloween. It was really cool.
But, just since you started talking about doing the show, I got to thinking about how many, and a lot of them are B movies, obviously, but there's a lot of movies out there about movies, probably one-off books and things like that about this subject. Obviously, the Tim Burton one is the most famous because it's Tim Burton and had the most budget behind it, but there's a lot of, more B-grade movies about that. So it's a popular topic.
Well, the most redeeming thing about the Tim Burton one to me was, Walken. I love Walken. I love him in anything.
Need more cowbell.
Yeah, more cowbell. The English version is said to be a headless rider that haunts the area around Dartmoor. But the English version may actually trace back to the Knights of the Round Table. If you guys remember the story in Arthurian legends, the Green Knight was beheaded by Sir Gawain, but he didn't die. He just casually picked his head up and told Gawain he'd see him in a year at the Green Chapel to complete the quest. And that was a pretty interesting story. There's a couple of versions of that movie out, Gawain and the Green Knight. I used to read a lot of the Arthurian legends when I was young. I loved them, still do. But the English version may actually trace its origins back to Arthurian legend, where the Green Knight was beheaded and still fought on.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can trace back to Arthurian legends. Thankfully.
Yes, might be a clue there. The Headless Horseman legends that I found most interesting was that in southern Texas, there's a legend of what they call El Muerto. The story started circulating around the mid 1800s. Allegedly, he carries a head basically hanging from his saddle horn. And his horse produces lightning when its hooves hit the ground. It's believed to be based on another legend where a horse thief was captured and beheaded, and his body was tied to a wild horse and sent running off into the desert.
Ooh, did you see Rodney's comment?
No, I did not. What did Rodney say?
Records of the Revolutionary War mention that a Hessian artilleryman was decapitated by a cannonball during the Battle of White Plains in 1776 near the village that is now Sleepy Hollow, New York.
So Washington Irving based that story off a historical event. I love that.
Good job, Rodney.
Thank you, Rodney. I love when I can tie real world history into a story, and I think that's what Irving did. I think he probably heard about that Hessian artilleryman losing his head and thought, "There's a story there," and I think that's an awesome little bit of history. Thanks for finding that, Rodney. The one in Texas, the one in Texas though, that one actually starts blending in Mexican folklore. They call him El Muerte, so we don't know where El Muerto. We don't know what his origin is. They just think it might be associated with a horse thief that was beheaded and set running on a horse. But you know, can you imagine? Even in modern day, if you're driving down a back road like on a motorcycle or in a car, and you see this horse keeping pace with your car, the rider don't have a head. Well, that version of the headless horseman or the headless rider thing seems to be pop up a lot of times throughout not only history and folklore, but in a lot of different stories. There was an episode of Kolchak the Night Stalker called Chopper, about a motorcycle rider, a guy in a motorcycle gang who was killed and had his head cut off. And he was riding around. Of course, the special effects were cheesy because it was 1974. But he was basically a guy in a black leather jacket on a motorcycle riding around cutting people's heads off.
Kind of well, and now that you mention it, I think I did see another movie one time, and it was kind of like an upgraded version of the Headless Horseman, but it was a guy on a motorcycle instead of on a horse. So that's probably.
Lone Queen says, "Isn't Dartmoor where the blue or black shuck roams?" Yeah, I believe that's the same area where the black shuck was sighted. Karen Ellsworth says, and then 5 miles down the road, you find a disembodied head whistling for his horse.
Yeah. How's it? Oh, disembodied head. I just thought body. I'm like, how's he whistling if he doesn't have a head? The head's whistling, the body's not.
Arkansas Hog Hunter says, the way I heard it, it was a cavalry dragoon officer that was beheaded by an artillery shell. Well, it seems to be an actual event that happened, near Sleepy Hollow. So it would be the perfect little bit of weird history to base a horror short story on.
Well,
and
Rodney put another comment up just a second ago when we were talking. It said that it was based on historical facts and folklore and a few other things around that area. So he apparently pulled a lot of different things into.
Well, it's no different. Well, I'm not trying to compare us to Washington Irving. He's a classic writer, but I'm just saying that's kind of similar to what we do as well. We take actual legend and history and fold those into our stories.
Yeah.
Mary Cole says, is that song "Ghost Riders in the Sky" based on a legend? I don't know if that's based on. It's a great song.
I think that, and this is just me personally, from what I've read, what I've heard, and how the song sounds to me, I think a lot of that's based on the riders of the apocalypse. I mean, obviously, if you want to look at it metaphorically, the herd it's chasing is humanity.
Well, according to the Googles, the song "Ghost Riders in the Sky" is not based on a single documented true story, but rather on a folk legend that Stan Jones heard from a Native American elder and combined with his own experiences and knowledges of myths like the Wild Hunt.
Which, and the Wild Hunt is, I mean, that's a version of the Riders of the Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
So. That is great.
I'm surprised because I hadn't heard of the Ozarks Hollow Man before. Well, it was just a few years ago, but until I really started digging into Legend of Sleepy Hollow, I'd never even heard of the Ozarks Hollow Man.
You got another.
There are tons of old folklore and legends here in the Ozarks.
I couldn't catch it on the stream, but Rodney had another comment about where it came from. If you saw, I don't know if you've seen it or not.
I did not see it. Vicky Denson says, I've seen plenty of headless chickens go across the yard when my mom pulled the heads off in my younger days. I've seen that happen.
Rodney's comment said, this incident was recorded in the Journal of American General William Heath, who noted that a cannonball took off the head of a Hessian artilleryman and also killed one of the artillery horses.
Well, the Welsh have another version called Benley's Rider. It was a cursed warlord who lost his head to divine fire. That's kind of wild.
Yeah.
The English in another part of England, they have one, the tale of the headless Earl of Yorkshire, betrayed and bound to ride until justice is served. And there's it's a German legend called Rubizal's Shadow, a forest spirit who collects heads as tokens of broken oaths. And the American frontier whispers the rise of the Ozarks Hollow Man, a rider who appears when the veil thins and the land remembers its blood.
Hey, we got Don Rollins in at 2:30 a.m. from North Wales.
That's awesome. Don, have you heard any of the Welsh legends of the Headless Horseman? I cannot, for the life of me, pronounce these, but I'll bring it up on screen and show you. I'll highlight it so you can see it, because if you're from Wales, I immediately I will definitely apologize because this my pronunciations were horrible. But here's my notes.
Kevin wants to know if you're thinking of the Rod Serling film.
Maybe. Could be. I grew up watching all those.
And Rodney, to answer your question you had just a second ago, I think a lot of these movies do pull from multiple things. Like the Tim Burton one, I 100% think he pulled from multiple legends and stuff like this and rolled it into his vision of what he thought it would be.
Okay, here's a little bit more about the Ozarks Hollow Man. Supposedly, he doesn't. His head is gone, but he carries a lantern. He's cloaked and wearing tattered remnants of a Confederate uniform, and his even his horse is skeletal, with black shiny hooves like obsidian. His headless form emits a low guttural howl like an elk bugling through a broken horn. Is most commonly seen in the Boston Mountains, which are in Arkansas, Devil's Den, which Devil's Den is not far from here, Spring Creek hollers, and appears when blood has been spilled unjustly. Supposedly, he's a guardian of forgotten oaths. That's creepy.
Guardian of forgotten oaths, meaning people who went back on their word, basically.
Mm-hmm. Well, with all of these various legends, there do seem to be certain underlying themes. They punish, some of them punish the wicked. Um, they are they will pursue somebody up into including killing them. They seem to be avenging spirits or harbingers of death, or even both.
Well, I mean, and you could go so far as to say it could be an avenging spirit, but if it's controlled, like we're talking about, who's it avenging? Is it avenging for good or is it avenging for bad? Depends on who's controlling it, I guess.
Right. If it's controlled at all.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. If there's a control element to it. Mike said he wants to have us on in October for a Halloween bash. Oh, you pulled it up. Sorry.
Sounds good, man. There's 2 weekends in October that I will be unavailable. The first weekend in October, the weekend of the 4th, I'll be at a Bigfoot convention here in Springfield, and the 23rd?
23rd and 24th.
We'll be in Ohio.
25th. We'll be in Ohio.
We'll be in Ohio for a Bigfoot convention.
Yeah.
Roxanne says we're under a severe thunderstorm watch here in Southwest Missouri. I'm not surprised. There we go. Don Rollins gave us a comment. Says local legend is one of the Fae partying at Castle Dennis Bran near Langolan. Local saint broke up the party. Interesting. Seeing if
there's one in Georgetown, South Carolina, a headless sentry. The headless sentry of Georgetown. That seems to be more of a common.
Don says, try pronouncing this one, DA. I live close to, I can say aqueduct. Yeah. That part I can say. I'm not even, I have no idea.
Yep, aqueduct. I got that one.
Yeah, aqueduct I can do. I think that one of the things I find most interesting about the Headless Horseman mythology is that it crops up in places you don't expect it. It could be rooted in the case of Ireland, it could be rooted in tales of Celtic gods or dark fae, or it could just be like in the Washington Irving story. It could be the haunted ghost of a Hessian soldier who lost his head in battle. But they all end up being, spectral visions that haunt darkened lanes and chase people and or act as avenging spirits, or in the case of the Dullahan, a deadly spirit that if it calls your name, you simply just die on the spot. But with these things being, tied to death or messengers of death, I think, to be honest, I think we'd be stupid to dismiss them outright. Yeah, a lot of this is just, caught up in folklore and old wives' tales and things like that. But surprisingly, how often these old wives' tales have more than a kernel of truth to them.
Yeah.
I mean, right there in South Carolina, Spearfinger. I would not make fun of that legend because the Cherokee have been telling that story longer than our people have been on the continent.
Yeah, I mean, everywhere you go, there's going to be some kind of old local legend or something like that. That, yeah, like you said, a lot of them may have been exaggerated over the years. But what we always say, there's always some small kernel of truth that everything was based on. I mean, somebody saw something that they didn't understand. They didn't know what they were looking at or how to explain it. And that's where things always get started from. I mean, the legend of dragons came from somewhere. They saw something that, that gave rise to that word.
Yeah, well, it's amazing how many cultures from such widely dispersed areas have similar legends. Dragons is a great one that Robbie brought up, and that's a great example. Pretty much every culture across the planet has legends of dragons or dragon type creatures.
Yeah.
And if you look at a dinosaur fossil,
Well, yeah, and I've said this plenty of times before, and I think this is what Kay Bowles he put it up earlier. Said, "Wouldn't the Wraith be the same kind of story?"
yeah,
With a car and a dead driver going after people. I think he's talking about the movie with Charlie Sheen. But anyway,
that's
I've
a
said
pretty
this
good movie.
before. If you were, let's say, a knight in Arthurian times, and you turned the corner and you saw what we now call a Tyrannosaurus Rex, but you turned the corner, trotting down the trail, and see something like that standing there, what would you call it? I mean, you didn't have the word dinosaur or the word Tyrannosaurus Rex. I mean, that'd be a dragon.
Miss Lene sent me one from Illinois. This one I didn't even know about. The Ladies Creek, Lakey's Creek, and the Headless Horseman of Illinois. Lakey Creek drains the farmland northwest of McLeansboro, Illinois, and heads south, eventually joining the North Fork of the Saline River in rural Hamilton County. From there, the saline grows more robust until it ultimately empties into the Ohio River on the eastern side of the Shawnee National Forest. The creek would have been a strategic place for many an early settler of McLeansboro Township. Unfortunately for Mr. Lakey, who would lend his name to the creek, the picturesque tract of land he picked for his homestead was also a place of death, for it was with his life that he purchased the immortality of having both a creek and a local legend associated with his name. Not long after the death of Lakey, two travelers reportedly were chased by a fearsome black steed upon which sat a headless rider. The horseman menaced them until they crossed the creek, at which point the phantom horse turned downstream and disappeared. The Headless Horseman of Lakey's Creek is quite possibly one of the oldest ghost stories in Illinois. Passed down as an oral tradition until John W. Allen put the story on paper in 1963. The mysterious man named Lakey, as well as his untimely end, has been immortalized in the folklore of southern Illinois. Like Jonesboro's legend of Doug Hill and Provost Marshal Welch, this story may also be preserving the memory of an unsettling event in local history. Long before a concrete bridge spanned the shallow creek 1.5 miles east of McLeansboro along Route 14, folklore say a frontiersman named Lakey attempted to erect his log cabin near a ford along the wagon trail to Mount Vernon. His task was nearly completed when he felled an oak tree to make boards for his roof. The next morning, a lone traveler stumbled upon Lakey's bloody body. Lakey's head had been severed by his own axe, which was left embedded in the stump of the oak. According to legend, his murderer was never found. And that's like the other one that we were reading about, where what was it? It was in England. What was his name? The Headless Earl of Yorkshire, betrayed and bound to ride until justice was served.
Yeah.
I imagine if we kept digging, we'd probably keep finding events like that.
Oh yeah, because you think one thing when you start. Oh, okay, this is Washington Irving's legend and it's here, and there's a few others, but then we've already uncovered 4 or 5 more that we didn't even know about.
Patricia Bunn says 42 years ago when I saw the headless rider on the horse skeletons in the area of Bethesda, Arkansas. Holy moly.
Yeah, that's not something you want to see.
Yep. Yeah, that would be definitely something that would be a brown pants moment. Dawn says, I recently heard about the Flixton werewolf. Evidently, it was mentioned in writing from 940 CE attacking travelers. Dude, what does that sound like? That bears being mentioned. You should probably write that down. The Flixton werewolf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that well, yeah, being here, something there it is. And paper.
Cajun Dog says a feathered rattlesnake is a story he heard about at a powwow as a child. Um, there's been lots of stories of feathered serpents. In Mayan culture, they called it Quetzalcoatl. And allegedly in Laclede County, Missouri, back in the mid 1800s, there was a story of a farmer who shot at one that was attacking his pigs. He described it as a flying feathered snake. Jeff Milkman says Maryland also has a headless horseman story. What's that? What's that one about, Jeff?
Yes, Rodney, that is true. He said if you're looking for something cryptid and spooky, go to Missouri.
You ain't wrong.
Nope.
Missouri does definitely seem to get more than its fair share of weird shit.
Problem is just getting Doc to slow down long enough to look at it.
Yeah. I was looking to see if I could find any more American ones. I mentioned the Kolchak episode, Chopper, right?
Yeah, Cajun's right. NOLA is another place to go look for weird, creepy stuff.
Yeah, anywhere in Louisiana. Here's a story from Terrytown, New York, which is just down the road from Sleepy Hollow. This says one cold winter night in the early in the new year, a Dutchman left a tavern in Terrytown and started walking to his home in the hollow nearby. That would probably be Sleepy Hollow.
Probably.
His path led next to the old Sleepy Hollow cemetery, where a headless Hessian soldier was allegedly buried. At midnight, the Dutchman came within sight of the graveyard. The weather had warmed up during the week, and the snow was almost gone from the road. It was a dark night with no moon, and the only light came from his lantern. The Dutchman was nervous about passing the graveyard, remembering the rumors of a galloping ghost that he'd heard at the tavern. He stumbled along, humming to himself to keep up his courage. Suddenly, his eye was caught by a light rising from the ground in the cemetery. He stopped, his heart pounding in fear. Before his startled eyes, a white mist burst forth from an unmarked grave and formed into a large horse carrying a headless rider. The Dutchman let out a terrible scream as the horse leapt toward him at full gallop. He took to his heels, running as fast as he could, making for the bridge, since he knew that the ghosts and evil spirits did not care to cross running water. He stumbled suddenly and fell, rolling off the road into a melting patch of snow. The headless rider thundered past him, and the man got a second to look at the headless ghost. It was wearing a Hessian commander's uniform. The Dutchman waited a good hour after the ghost disappeared before crawling out of the bushes and making his way home. After fortifying himself with schnapps, he told his wife about the ghost. By noon the next day, the story was all over Terrytown. The good Dutch folk were divided in their opinions. Some thought that the ghost must be roaming the roads at night searching for its head. Others claimed that the Hessian soldier rose from the grave to lead the Hessian soldiers in a charge up nearby Chatterton Hill, not knowing that the hill had already been taken by the British. Whatever the reason, the Headless Horseman continues to roam the roads near Terrytown on dark nights to this day. Yeah, Terrytown's just up the road from Sleepy Hollow. Cajun says parts of Oklahoma, most of Arkansas and East Texas got a lot of spooky stuff. Let's see. Milkman says the headless wanderer of Peddler's Run. He was a Civil War soldier decapitated during a skirmish at Gaithersburg. Uh,
Oh, look at what Bobby Singleton says.
yeah, I was getting ready to comment on that. I've heard the story. I've heard about there being graves in a little Oklahoma town that on the gravestones it said killed by human wolves. I've been meaning to dig into that. The Headless Wonder of Peddler's Run was a Civil War. Okay, yeah, I already read that. Um,
Yeah, that's definitely something we need to look into. The graves with the human wolf thing on it.
mm-hmm. I need to look into that. Toshi says a German doctor riding at night lost his head to a tree branch. Now people see him on a white horse with fiery eyes in and around Franklin County. Franklin County, where? Arlen says we also have the stories of a young girl walking along the road. When people give her a ride, she vanishes from cars. Yeah, bringing Mary home. I've heard that story. That actually happens in several places across the U.S., but just outside of Chicago. Yeah,
Supernatural did a story. What was that? Their first episode?
yeah, that was the first episode with the woman in white.
Yeah.
But the girl in the legend of bringing Mary home never hurts anybody. She just on the night of her death, she hitchhikes and gets a ride home, and she's never there when they get her there. Toshi says that okay, it's in Pennsylvania. Okay, I didn't see his first comment. Mr. Anderson says a dark or headless horseman has to be one of the scariest things you can see. Yeah, yeah, I can imagine it would be pretty terrifying. But you know, it seems to be pretty common lore. I would even hazard a guess that there's similar legends in other cultures. We just haven't found them because they don't call it a headless horseman.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you just think about the visual that Tim Burton gave Christopher Walken in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it was doing the flashbacks and showing him when he was still all in black and he filed his teeth to points, and I mean, on that gigantic solid black horse. I mean, that's
Yeah.
stuff of nightmares. I think that's about his third of the night.
I think so. Cajun's dog says had found an old graveyard in the woods. 3 graves dug up. Shovels weren't used. 2 had claw marks, and the last one looked like a person did it. Big fingers, though, if you understand. Where was this at, Cajun? That sounds pretty fascinating.
He said he went back 3 years ago and the graveyard was gone. No, that's not something that you'd think anything about.
Yeah, no kidding. A missing graveyard. It wouldn't surprise me that, probably all over the country, different locations have similar stories.
Well, I mean, we talk about this with Bigfoot and Dogman creatures. Every major continent has legends about those too. I mean, we love to call them legends and folklore, but every major civilization on every continent has these stories that kind of says that there's something to all this stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
it's off Highway 66 in Oklahoma, about 2 miles off the highway.
Here's another one from Scotland. Uh, Ewan of the Little Head. The island of Mull off the west coast of Scotland has long been haunted by a legend of a headless horseman, Ewan of the Little Head. I'm not even going to try to say it in Gaelic. He was the son and heir of a local clan chief who lost his head in a battle in 1538. Ewan's horse ran for miles along the river, carrying his headless body until it became exhausted and stopped near a waterfall. Ever since, Ewan's headless ghost has been rumored to haunt the paths of the Mull on horseback. Locals who believe they've encountered the spirit are said to be treated like celebrities by fellow islanders.
Yeah, Long Queen said, funny how some of those legends and folklore managed to kill livestock and even people.
Yeah, no kidding. There's one from England, the Headless Horseman of Devon. The county of Devon in southwestern England has a generally quiet reputation, but behind the placid veneer there lies a number of eerie stories from local folklore, including more than one headless horseman. One is said to haunt the moor of Dartmoor, another is claimed to be the ghost of a priest beheaded during the Middle Ages who travels through one of the oldest roads in the town of Torquay on horseback. A variant of the legend sometimes has the headless man driving a coach led by a horse.
But like when I did my show on Crybaby Bridge in Anderson, I learned there is an exponential amount of crybaby bridges in the United States.
There's one here just outside of Springfield.
Yeah, it seems like just about every state has a crybaby bridge. So, I mean, you got to ask the question, okay, is that somebody hears that and says, oh, that's a cool story, and then take it back and they start telling it, or is there really something to it? Because some of the legends vary a little bit and are a little bit different, just like what we're talking about tonight. But
the Crybaby Bridge here in Springfield is just out north of town, and when they redid the bridge, they extended the guardrails for about 40 yards on either side of the bridge. So now there's anywhere near it you can park.
I wonder why. I mean, I know what their answer will be. Oh, to stop people from doing it so there's no accidents late at night, blah, 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 blah. But
you could pull off the road right at the edge of the bridge and get out and walk out on the bridge. You can't park anywhere near it. There's a couple of places you can get off the road, but you're going to have to walk a few hundred yards to get to the bridge. Arkansas Hog Hunter had a good comment. He said, I've heard several different stories about white horses being omens of death. I've heard stories of black dogs appearing in your path. One walked into a church during a service and it burned to the ground. Is that here in the U.S.? That's creepy.
Yeah.
Mr. Anderson says a Grim Reaper on horseback would be a pretty close description. Could be. Don Rowland says Devon also has the story of devil's footprints. They went for miles going over roofs, fields, and etc. Well, I think I remember hearing about that one.
Well, one of the stories of the Jersey Devil in the Pine Barrens is a couple that saw, or he heard, if I remember exactly how it went, he saw something in the field behind their house, and he went back in, I guess, to either tell his wife or get her something. And while he was in there talking to her, they hear something on the roof of their house, and it was just snowing pretty heavy. So he didn't go back out, but it heard it walking back and forth on the roof of his house. So later on, after it stopped, a couple hours after it stopped, he walked outside and he kind of moved away from the house where he could see, up on the house, up on the roof from where he was at, and he could see a track of footprints going across the pitch of the roof and going down, and then disappearing. And he goes up and looks at the house, couldn't find any more, like where it jumped down or whatever. Walks about 100 to 150 yards away and finds a set of tracks leading off from his house, but like it either jumped or flew from his rooftop 150 yards away and walked off back into the Pine Barrens.
The Jersey Devil creeps me out.
I didn't realize how big that place was till I started doing research for that show.
Oh, Pine Barrens is massive.
Yeah, it's over 1 million acres.
Yeah, it's almost as big as the Mark Twain National Forest. I mean, it's huge.
There's a lot of creepy stories out of that place. Not just the Jersey Devil stuff. There's Dogman and / werewolf. There's Bigfoot sightings. There's all kinds of stuff in that place.
Look at this one. I'm from Alabama. Why haven't I heard about Pighead anywhere else in the world? Miss Naoma tells a story. It's not a Pighead. It's Rawhide and Bloody Bones. That I think it's the version of the Pighead story. You look up Rawhide and Bloody Bones on her channel, Naoma Finn Storyteller. She has a really great version of that story, and I've heard the story before, but she's got a real knack for storytelling. So if you want to hear a good creepy story, well narrated, go over to Miss Naoma's channel and look up Rawhide and Bloody Bones.
Was that kind of the same as Rawhide Rex or Rawhead Rex from England?
Yeah, I think so. Very similar. Miss Lene says, I got to tap out. I've loved being able to spend time with y'all. Really missed every single one of you. Y'all is my tribe. Well, Miss Lene, you get some rest. You get to feeling better. We're glad you could spend a little time with us. We don't want you to overdo it. We want you to get better. And y'all keep her in your prayers. She's still recovering, but we're happy that she got to spend a little time with us tonight. Miss Lene, you have a great night. Tell Jim I said hi.
Good night, Miss Lene.
Arlen Neal says, what about Mothman in West Virginia? We've talked about Mothman before, and we could probably do a whole show on it, and probably should at some point. But I think that's more of a harbinger, like a death omen.
Yeah.
Although I can see where the two might have, certain similarities.
Kind of a overlay or overlap, rather.
So which version of the Headless Horseman is your favorite?
Well, I mean, obviously I like Washington Irving's story because that's the first one I ever heard. I mean, then I saw the Disney story, which, at the time I guess was good. But honestly, I like the TV show better than Tim Burton's movie. So I'm going to say the TV show is probably going to be my favorite.
I'm not a huge fan of Tim Burton.
I'm not either,
But yeah, I like that. I like the TV series. I really liked how they explained that. And they later, as that series progressed, they incorporated in other legends too. They even did one on the Wendigo, which was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the costume that they had for the Wendigo for that was fantastic.
I mean, you get Clancy Brown involved in anything, it's going to be good.
Yeah, well, he only really got to stick around for the first episode other than in flashbacks.
Yeah.
Which was too bad because I was really hoping he'd be a main character. I love him.
Yeah. Orlando Jones was pretty good in that series too.
It was well cast. Yeah. The guy that played Ichabod, I liked him a lot. The Detective Mills, was it Abby Mills?
Lieutenant Abby Mills, yes.
Yeah, Lieutenant. I liked her. She was good. I thought she was well cast. I like her.
The girl played her sister when they brought her in. I like that dynamic.
Yeah, I thought the whole show, and then bringing in oh God, what's his name? As Ichabod's son. What is his name?
I can't remember the name, but I know who you're talking about. But honestly, one of the surprises to me was towards the end when they brought in Shannon Sossaman, because that was the first thing she had done since Heath Ledger died. Because they were really close. They were in a lot of movies together, and they were really close. And when he died, she really kind of pulled back and stopped acting. So they brought her back in towards the end, she was that witch or sorceress or whatever. I can't remember exactly how they described her, but she did really good in that. I mean, that was some of her best work, I think.
John Noble is who they brought in. Another great John Noble series, if you're into weird stories, Fringe. Fringe was really well done.
I don't know if I've seen that or not.
There was multiple seasons of that. If you haven't seen Fringe, you should check it out, dude. I mean, it's right up our alley.
Have to consult the Netflixes.
I'm not sure where it's streaming anymore. It kind of disappeared for a while. It's an old series.
Yes, I believe we have established caca and tuki don't work. I love that movie.
What movie was that?
Evolution.
Oh, okay.
Orlando Jones, Sean William Scott, and David Duchovny. When Sean William Scott's in there, he's in the mall. He's like, caca, tuki. And Orlando Jones turns around, looks at him, and goes, I believe we have established that caca and tuki don't work.
I think I want to dig in more about the Ozarks Hollow Man because if I can find more concrete evidence of that, not necessarily like a sighting or anything like that, but more documentation, that might be good for a book. I'm already planning a book that's going to kind of take place on its own. It's going to be called The Wraith of Wright County. Apparently, after the Battle of Hartville, when the Confederate forces were withdrawing from the area, several of their best sharpshooters took to the woods to slow the Union down from pursuing them because they were pretty tore up. And one of the sharpshooters became infamous. They started calling him the Wraith of Wright County because they couldn't catch him. And he took out a lot of dudes. And supposedly, he was getting help from the area. The area itself was mostly pro-Union, but the battle was actually won by the Confederates. But they took such heavy losses, they still had to pull out of the area because they were so far from their supply lines. But the Wraith stayed behind and was picking off a lot of pretty valuable targets. And there were some sympathizer families in the area that were supporting him, and they tracked him down months later after he'd killed a ton of people. To a farmhouse if what they say is correct, they said between a few miles outside of Grove Springs toward Lebanon. And you know what that would be? That would be the Smiddle Cave area.
Really?
Yeah. So they allegedly tracked him down to a farmhouse and surrounded it and burnt the farmhouse down with the family and the wraith inside. They supposedly the guy just stared at him from the fire from one of the upper floors as the house was the house was engulfed. But supposedly, even to this day, people have wraith sightings.
But back to the Ozarks Hollow Man.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard not to say Ozarks Howler when you say Ozarks, but Ozarks Hollow Man. Think about Logue going up against that thing.
Yeah.
In another Lakeview Man book. Be a good good fight for Logue.
Yeah. Might be something you might find wandering the dark roads and narrow ass, barely roads out near Blunk Road, maybe.
Yep.
On that road, there's an intersection of Blunk Road and Gideon Drive.
I think you pointed that out when me, you, and Noah were over there that time.
I always thought that was pretty wild that there's a Gideon Drive out there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you pointed that out because I was like, huh, imagine that. That that's got the makings of a pretty good.
Yeah, that gives me some ideas there. I but I don't necessarily mean uh, big screen or TV version. Which version of the legend that we've talked about do you think you find the creepiest?
Oh, all of them. I mean, they're all pretty dang creepy.
The Hollow Man really rings the most for me because I
Yeah,
live here. If there was a headless horseman of Pickens County, that would probably be the one that freaked you out the most because you could walk outside and see it.
yeah. Uh, it's hard to put. I mean, because they all, like I said, they all kind of. I guess the one we were talking about that kind of tied in was Sleepy Hollow, where the guy was walking into the bar and saw the light coming up out of the ground. It chased him across the bridge and he dove into the snowbank. That's pretty creepy. It's one thing if you see something when you're driving in a car, but just to be out walking at night by yourself in the middle of nowhere and having to whistle to get your courage up, and then just just the image that brings up in your mind of being out there and something like that happening. I guess that kind of.
I tell you though, if you think about like looking down a dark road and seeing the silhouette of a horseman with no head, with maybe the moonlight in the background, like in the trees, look like you're looking through a tunnel and there's like a light fog. Blunk Road is that road. The whole thing is like a tunnel.
Yeah.
You get down by the river and it's yeah, it is the trees are completely over the road. Especially in summertime, it's like driving through a tunnel. It's deep in shadows, even in broad daylight.
Yeah, that's pretty creepy.
I think that definitely bears more research. Um, I mean, the Dullahan from Irish mythology, the thought of a dark rider with with a whip made out of human spines. Ugh.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. That's pretty damn creepy too. I mean, like I said, they're all, you know, you wouldn't want to come across any of them on a dark night. Dear Chief, it was a dark and stormy night. I think that's what's so cool about what we do as writers is hearing these things and then figuring out ways to put our own spin on it, incorporate this stuff, and and in effect keep these legends going.
Well, those all these legends were kept alive for so long by oral tradition only. But the only way that these legends are going to continue to exist in future generations is if people retell the story and write it down and and create new stories based on those legends. That's yeah. I think that's as writers, I think it's kind of our duty to do stuff like that. When I was talking about Lincoln's death train, I was looking up something on it. It said the Lincoln's death train phenomenon is not a single specific event, but a folklore legend about a ghostly funeral train that appears near the anniversary of President Lincoln's assassination and his body's 3-week funeral tour across the U.S. The Phantom Train is often described with specific characteristics, including a mournful black appearance, spectral skeletons, cold gusts of wind, and an unnerving effect of stopping nearby clocks. Though the sightings may vary by location, the legend is a blend of historical fact, folklore, and ghost stories that have grown up over time, and the train is said to reenact events from the original funeral procession.
Hmm.
This story has taken root in various communities along the original funeral train's path, becoming local legend in places like Urbana, Ohio, and Albany, New York.
Yeah, I mean, all these legends are just in the folklore and all that stuff. It's to hear things are so we've lost so much in today's society. You know, relying on stuff like this. You know, but the spoken word and the written word, just telling stories or writing stories down. That is such a dying art form, and it's cool to sit here and dig into that kind of stuff and see how it's survived over the centuries. And we're still sitting here talking about stuff that was written down, and I think we saw one date 940 AD. I mean, that's just wild to me to think that we can still now in 2025 hear about these stories that people were talking about that long ago, and it still have an impact on things that you and I are doing right now. That's just that just is cool to me.
I agree. I love old folklore like that, especially when you can find traces of it in modern times that still affect people in your area.
Yeah.
Roxanne says the train does show itself, but it's usually close to the anniversary of Lincoln's death, and people have described it going by. Some said it went by in complete silence, seeing this old steam powered locomotive go through. Other people describe hearing the mournful wail of the steam horn, the steam whistle. But they said it sounds like it's coming from miles and miles away. But it's nothing like a modern locomotive. It's just this mournful, long cry of the train horn.
Well, think about I can't, his name just left me, but he sings that long black train. That song about devils riding that long black train. I mean, stuff like that permeates our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, God, help me out, chat. Country singer got a big, deep voice. I can't think of it. I had it when I was getting ready to say it. I won't say it's Josh something or another.
What's the song called?
I think the song's called "Long Black Train." Josh Turner. That's it. Thank you, Jeff. But I'm sure that incorporates some of the stuff we've been talking about.
There's a bluegrass tune. It's about a ghost train. It's called the Silver Ghost. You ever heard that one?
Maybe.
Merle Haggard did a version of it years and years ago, but there's a modern band that does a version of it. Like I said, Merle Haggard was the original one, but I'm trying to remember the name of the one that did it most recently. But it's such a good song, very very haunting. Um, Wildwood Valley Boys. It's a bluegrass band called Wildwood Valley Boys. But great song if you ever get a chance to listen to it. It's about a ghost train.
Yep.
Hadn't thought about that song in a hot minute. I need to listen to that one again tonight. A lot of great country songs told horror stories. Uh, uh, Charlie Daniels Band, Legend Woolly Swamp.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great story. Another one, Ghost Riders in the Sky, they mentioned earlier. That one, Yeah, I think that one blends elements of the Wild Hunt, but yeah, it's a creepy story.
Yeah.
Marty Robbins did a song. Um, I can't remember the name of the song. Old cowboy tune. Um, Now Marty's been dead for years, but
Yeah.
he's talking about a guy that was not following the best of paths, and was spared during a stampede by a bolt of lightning and turned his life around. Harlan says, "There's a story I heard about a train that vanished 50 or more years ago without a trace." That would be interesting to look into.
And little Patty asked about, um, did Johnny Cash sing a song about a ghost train?
Maybe.
Didn't Johnny Cash put out a song about a ghost train? Probably. Johnny Cash put out a lot of stuff like
Yeah, he
that.
did. Thank you, Power Armor. Power Armor Division subscribe to the channel. Thank you for being part of the channel.
Thank you.
The Old Man Down the Road by that one was done by John Fogerty solo, but yeah, sound in the old CCR style. Um, Midnight in Montgomery by Alan Jackson.
Yeah.
That's a great one about the ghost of Hank Williams.
Yeah.
Said Hank Snow did one called Ghost Train.
Um,
Oh, Arkansas says the Master's Calls when you're thinking of DA. Yeah, I used to listen to Marty Robbins all the time as a kid. My mother was a big country and western fan. I grew up listening to all those old classic country albums. And there was another country album she had, and I wish I could remember who sang it. But the song is about a guy going out to stop mountain lions from poaching their cattle, and about the battle between him and the mountain lion. It was pretty cool about him roping it and dragging it to death. Yeah, it's a pretty cool story, pretty cool song, but it's also fairly humorous. The
yeah.
Ride by David Allan Coe. Yeah.
And Devil Went Down to Georgia. That kind of falls into that same category.
Harlan said 25 years later the train reappeared. Holy crap. Wonder where it went.
I personally like the Dale Earnhardt version of the Last Ride. I can't remember who did that, but they replaced Hank Williams Sr. with Dale Earnhardt. Pretty good song.
Arkansas Hog Hunter says Phantom 309 about the ghost trucker. That's old Red Sovine. I liked him a lot.
Yep.
He also did the song "Bringing Mary Home" about the ghost girl near Chicago. Yeah, Red Sovine did a lot of great old trucker songs, but yeah, Phantom 309 was always pretty creepy. Harlan says DA 25 years later that train reappeared and no one knows where it went. That's pretty freaky.
But and bring it up because I don't know if this was like the anniversary, kind of sort of that same vein of bringing real life stuff in. Gordon Lightfoot's the Wreck of the
Edmund Fitzgerald.
That's when you listen to that song and think
it's kind of haunting.
Yeah, and think about what he says in that song about how many ships and people have went down in the Great Lakes.
The lake, it is said, never gives up or dead when the gales of November come early.
Mm-hmm. That was, that was just an amazing song. That's a song, even to this day, I can just listen to that song like over and over.
That's a good song.
Yep, you're right, Jeff. It's a very haunting song.
Mr. Anderson says, this young guy named Coulter Wall sings a song about the devil wears a suit and tie. I like Coulter Wall. Who sings Horse Soldier?
Horse Soldier.
I see his face, can't think of his name. That song makes me think of Gideon every time I hear it. Corb Lund. Yeah, that song's talking about reincarnation, fighting down through the centuries. Makes me think of Gideon every time I hear it.
Yeah, Northwood said listening to that Gordon Lightfoot song while you're sitting at the shore on the shore of Lake Superior gives it a different meaning. I
I
imagine
bet
so.
it does. You know,
Yep, Jeremy Lee
talking.
said Chris Ledoux had one about picking up the devil while he's hitchhiking.
Chris Ledoux was a great one too.
Yep.
Oh, Stray Wolf Forge, Cattleman's Gun. That's a good one. Not necessarily a horror story, but definitely a really good story in the song. A lot of country songs, the really great ones tell a story. And that's why I don't like what they call modern country, because rarely does it do anything but just repeat the same crap over and over again. They're formulaic anymore. There's no craftsmanship to the lyrics. It's all basically just pop. And that's not why I listen to country music. When I listen to country, I listen to old country. Well, John Rich did The Devil in the TVA.
Yep.
Highwayman, that's about reincarnation. I wonder if any songs have been done about Headless Horseman.
I don't know. But Garth Brooks did kind of a one like that, The Beaches of Cheyenne, where somebody died and the significant other walked out and drowned themselves. And they said, it goes on to say, you can see your footprints in the sand on certain nights. Wasn't one of his more well-known songs, but it was.
After the Titanic, it is now considered bad luck to play Nearer My God to Thee on a ship.
I didn't know
because that was supposedly what the orchestra was playing when she went down.
Ooh, good one, Richie. Riders on the Storm by the Doors.
That's a good song. Jeff said that was about Lane Frost. Which song?
Yeah, Beaches of Cheyenne.
Oh yeah, Riding with Private Malone's a great song too.
Yes, I forgot about that.
I really like that one. Been a while since I heard that one too. That's a great song. And it's amazing, folks, how these little bits of folklore don't just, they're not just, it's living folklore. When it shows up in the pages of stories, when it shows up in song lyrics or TV shows, that's just great examples of old folklore still relevant in modern day. And I think, whether you want to believe the stories or not is up to you. There's some stories that I hear, I'm just like, okay, that's got to be fake. But then there are others that just, was it that line from Charlie Daniels Band, on certain nights if the moon's right? There are the stories that just make the hair on the back of your neck stand up when you hear them. Because I can tell you, and Robbie can tell you too, you go down to Moon Valley at night, it would not shock me to see something like a headless horseman right out of the woods, because that valley is creepy, and you are so far from any blacktop roads. If you're not going to hear hoofbeats on pavement. You're going to hear hoofbeats on gravel or on ground, because there's no roads out there. It's all gravel.
Kevin says Bing Crosby did a song on the Headless Horseman.
Oh yeah, Jeremy Lee's Best, the Landlord's Daughter, the Highwayman from what is her name? Lorena McKennitt. She's like the Scottish Enya. I love Lorena McKennitt. Speaking of songs, have you had a chance to listen to Stephen McDonald yet?
I listened to that when you sent that night, but I hadn't listened anymore yet.
Yeah, you definitely want to listen to Sun Summer Led and then Highland Farewell. Highland Farewell talks about the clearances. Had a lot of history in those.
I've already got an idea to have. That's going to be in what I'm working on now. Somebody's going to be listening to it while they're doing something and having flashbacks.
Mr. Anderson said, "Do you believe in haunted land?" Yeah, I definitely do. I believe some things happen that are so horrific that it stains the land it happens on. Horrific events, LBL, horrific events will forever change a land. Go to any Civil War battlefield and go there at dusk and tell me you can't feel it. Those lands are they're bathed in blood, and I'm within a short drive of multiple Civil War battles. I could take you out to an old Union cemetery right now, and even though it's 50 yards off a highway, it's set back in the woods. It's close to a highway. You get back there and all the sound just kind of fades out. It's like you're in a different world. It is really creepy back there, but the overwhelming feeling you get at that cemetery is loneliness, because the bulk of the gravestones that are out there say unidentified.
Little Patty's
They were
got
buried, they were buried after the Battle of Wilson's Creek. Yeah, Black Velvet, that's a good song.
About Elvis's ghost.
I love when that song comes on, as Annette sings along with it, and I love listening to her sing that song.
Bonnie Raitt, isn't that who originally sung that song?
I think so. Lana Miles did the most modern version, I think. But I think Bonnie Raitt did a version of it. Roxanne says in Carthage, they say the battlefield there is haunted. I've heard people talk about it. Yeah, I've heard about people seeing people, soldiers in uniform, hearing horses, hearing musket fire, both at Carthage and out here at Wilson's Creek. I know some folks that live out along the road that passes near Wilson's Creek, and they'll tell you certain times of the year you go out and sit on your back deck and you can hear the muskets. And that's not times of the year that they're having reenactments out there. They do a reenactment out there, but it's only like for 1 week a year for the celebration. But yeah, there are people that say you can go out there at night, hear horses whinnying and muskets going off. And I talked to a couple guys. The Wilson's Creek runs through the battlefield, and then it leaves the property of the battlefield and continues on into Springfield. I could take you right to Wilson's Creek if you wanted to go see it. But just outside the battlefield, there's a bridge that crosses Wilson's Creek. And it's not a huge creek. I mean, it's not real deep. It's not pushing a whole lot of water. But I know some guys that parked their car there and went down and were fishing beneath the bridge right there on Wilson's Creek, just outside the battlefield, and said they heard something coming. And they looked up and saw two guys on horseback in Confederate uniforms coming up the river slowly. And at first they thought it was like part of the reenactors. They said they were quite a ways away, and they're like watching them. And he said, as they got closer, the weirder it felt. And finally they said, you know what? I don't think we need to fish here anymore, and packed up their stuff and left.
Kay Bowers wanted to know if you heard about the theory of Garth Brooks being a serial killer. Said that
I had not heard that.
I've not heard it either. Said something about there's missing people line up with his tour dates. I hadn't heard anything about that though. But
that's crazy. I might have to look that up. Arlen Neal said, I saw one of those ghost hunting shows a few years ago at Gettysburg. They were filming some soldiers marching. As they were filming, the soldiers slowly vanished. It's what started them hunting. I was watching a documentary about the filming of the movie Gettysburg, and they filmed part of that at the actual battlefield. And at one point, the director stopped everybody, and he's like, hey, you get on the radio and tell those guys down at the far end to back up. They're offline with the rest of the units. And he goes, we don't have a unit down there. And the director was looking at him through the camera. He's like, I'm telling you, wait a minute, there's nobody down there. Yeah, there was a whole platoon formed up, but they were not lined up with the actors. So the director was like, "You got to tell those guys to back up. They're offline." And there weren't people.
So the camera was picking it up, but nobody else could see it.
Nobody could see it. The camera was picking it up. So if you watch the cut of the director's cut of Gettysburg, it's entirely possible that might be actually in there. I think it was when they were lining up for Pickett's charge.
Interesting.
Jeff says probably a crazy groupie. I don't think it was a groupie. It was. They said there was a whole platoon, so that's some dedication if you get a ghostly platoon out there. Jeff says, I know a guy that gave a ghost a ride in Gettysburg. That's cool. That's weird, though. You wouldn't think a Civil War ghost would know what a car was.
I think Jeff was talking about a crazy groupie for the Garth Brooks thing.
Okay. Hillary says they claim he has an alter ego.
Yeah, Chris Gaines. He did that whole album, Chris Gaines.
I remember that. Sorry, I was reading some of the comments that I'd missed. I think pretty much any battlefield, any area where they had Civil War battles or even Revolutionary War battles nearby, could easily spawn a Headless Horseman legend.
Yeah,
I mean, that somebody losing a limb or losing a head in battle probably wasn't all that uncommon. Cajun Dog says you have to wonder how many soldiers or units that vanished in the Civil War were taken out by cryptids. Well, there's Old Green Eyes from the Battle of Chickamauga. Old Green Eyes was documented in both Union and Confederate journals from officers on both sides of the war, saying that there was this green-eyed thing that would come out and drag off the dead or the wounded. Little Patty said, just started pouring the rain here. I wish it would here. We could use it. I mean, the backyard is bone dry. Arlen says, there's lots of folks catching ghosts on film at battlefields. Let me see if I can find the picture my buddy sent me. I've got a friend named Brian Forrester. I was an officer with him for years.
Just the Canon picture?
Yes. I think I know right where that's at. But, Brian's one of those guys that I was a rookie with Brian. I'd take a bullet for Brian even to this day. He's blood as far as I'm concerned. Just an awesome guy. Great to work with, and he's my brother. I always will be. But he sent me this image. He was a volunteer out at Wilson's Creek Battlefield, which he helped out and would lock up and stuff like that. Patrol the park because he was a cop at the time. I mean, he just volunteered to work out there. And I know I've got this image. Give me a second to hunt it up. I think I'm in the right folder. But Brian said, "Hey, something weird happened out at the battlefield." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, what?" He goes, "Well, I took this picture and I forgot about it." He said, because he volunteered out there for years. He said, "I took this picture, just took it of my son while we were out there locking up." He said, "And to give you a little story on this, there wasn't anybody in the battlefield." He said it was closed. I was out there checking for people that might have snuck in or making sure everything was locked up. He said we just he had to do that periodically. He said it wasn't until years later that he spotted this, because he took this picture in 2011, and I think he sent it to me 4 or 5 years ago. He was going through old photos and just happened to look at it and said, "Holy crap! I never saw that before." So here's the image. This is taken of one of the cannons at the actual the Wilson's Creek National Battlefield. Brian was taking the picture, and this is his son. His son's grown now. I'll tell you how old this picture is. 2011 is when this was taken, November of 2011. You can see his son playing around by the cannon, but look right here between these two trees. What do you see appearing out of that picture? And Brian said there was nobody else in the park, much less anybody in period uniform. That, yes, you are correct. That is a Union soldier. Now, this was captured right here at Wilson's Creek National Battlefield. I mean, you can see the dark colored slouch hat, a lighter colored shirt, the gray pants. It's a guy in a slouch hat. But from the dark color of the slouch hat, I'm going to guess he was Union. Because, obviously it would have been gray if it had been a Southern boy. Arlen says, DA, I've caught shadow figures on my digital camera. I sent you the pictures. Yeah, it's amazing some of the stuff people have caught on pictures. But this one just really, really stood out since we were talking about battlefields anyway. And he said neither him or his son saw anybody in the park that day. He didn't even see it till years later when he was looking at the photos. Lone Queen says battlefields tend to turn skeptics into believers pretty often. Little Patty says, don't remember where I saw it, but there was a video from the battlefield in Lexington, Missouri with two spirits walking around the cannons. Would not surprise me. I mean, even zoomed out, once you know he's there, it's plain. I mean, it's easy as hell to see it. And that is clearly not part of the tree, because you can tell from that it's not part of that. Hell, it doesn't even connect to the tree. If you look at it, there's a gap between it. So it's not the tree. There's no person out there. There's no trees out there. That's just grass. Cajun Dog says, what do you think about kids seeing spirits? I think kids are more susceptible to seeing stuff like that because, we're told from the time we're kids that, you're just imagining things. Robbie, even when he saw Bigfoot, they just said, it's your imagination. You're just scaring yourself. We all hear stuff like that. And eventually, as we get older, we start believing them. But kids, little kids especially, they don't have that yet. They're still open to seeing things around them that might not exist as we're used to the word. But I think it's just a very interesting thing that kids and certain adults who never really grow out of it, but kids especially seem to be more attuned to seeing stuff like that. Yeah, that's Forster's ghost picture. Yeah, there's a lot of haunted places here in the Ozarks. Well, there's haunted places all over the U.S. It's so crazy that people who have never gone out and experienced anything like this are so quick to dismiss people who have had these experiences. But it's not just one or two people that have seen ghosts or had a Bigfoot encounter. There's thousands upon thousands. I would say even much higher than that. There might be millions of people across this country that have had some sort of paranormal, cryptid, or UFO experience. And I think it's high time that we stop, saying oh, you're just crazy. I think, anybody that dismisses it like that should have an experience of their own. I really do, especially when it comes to like cryptids. Somebody that wants to say Bigfoot doesn't exist and we're just full of crap. I tell you what, you come to Springfield, Missouri, and me and Robbie will take you to Blunk Road at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we'll see what you believe in when we're done.
Mm-hmm.
Because Blunk Road or Combs Ferry or Joe Bald or Moon Valley, any of them places will make a believer out of you.
Just ask Steve.
Made a believer out of Steve that night, I can tell you.
I mean,
Cajun Dog says, my mom was showing me the family album, and I pointed out her grandpa. Said, who was that? Mom asked how I knew that. Said who it was, and Mom asked how I knew that, because he passed away when I was a month old. I pointed at the wall and said, because he's there. Hey, man, I firmly believe kids are capable of seeing things. We're going to be digging kind of more into that in coming shows. I think that I don't want to give away too much just yet. This Saturday's show, we're going to be talking about alternate realities, parallel universes, and the Mandela effect. I've read some interesting things here lately that I kind of want to share with you guys, and we'll be talking about that. But sometime in the near future, I want to do a show on paranormal aspects and the possibility of recording them. We'll be showing some images and things like that we're looking forward to showing, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. I mean, we're pretty proud of some of the research we've done, and some of the places we've been are not definitely not for the faint of heart. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, we've talked about a lot of our exploits on here, but we're fixing to do a lot more, and I can't wait to get back out to some of the creepier places in the Ozarks with Robbie and Doc and Steve and Noah and Wyatt and then a few other folks. Steve Payton, if he's listening, he'll be one of them. But we're going to get out to some really, really creepy places, and we're going to do some filming and hopefully be bringing you guys some very interesting footage. Robbie, you got anything you want to add?
I mean, like I said before, I just think it's cool that all this stuff survives and makes it so we can still, talk about stuff like this in this day and age. And I just, I want to do my part to keep stuff like that going. And, it's like the stuff that we just learned in the chat tonight, just the stuff that you guys have brought, that, I mean, things that I didn't even have a clue about. That's 43 Big Vic. Anyone who doubts crypt existence probably hasn't ever. Sorry, the chat rolled. Anyone who has doubts about the cryptic experience probably hasn't ever had the disadvantage to shoot a coyote in an open field and have the body vanish. Good point. Or have a deer drug off and disappear. There's so much stuff, and these people that we've talked about it before. DA and I both have said this. A lot of these people who think they're smart, think they're educated and know more than us ignorant hicks and rednecks that see these things, like DA says, that couldn't possibly happen. And then all of a sudden, you got National Geographic's recording the Billy Ape in the Congo. I mean, things are there,
Yeah.
Whether it be the real flesh and blood cryptids that we talk about, or these ghosts, for lack of a better term, spirits, whatever you want to call them. There's things in this world that we don't understand. And I think our problem is we always try to, when I say we, I mean humanity in general, always have to try to explain everything instead of just saying, "Hey, there's something that I don't understand." It is what it is. Everybody, these people got to put a label on it. Oh well, it's your imagination, and this is just this, and you're only seeing. It's like Da's analogy he uses of somebody going out and taking a teaspoon and dipping it in the edge of the ocean where it meets the beach and saying, "Yep, no sharks in there. I guess that means sharks don't exist." I mean, this world is so vast, and there's so much area that has never been walked by human feet.
Well, they just found a new species of shark off of South America. No, off of Australia just a few weeks ago that is bright orange, but never been seen before.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're still finding big stuff.
Yeah, Kay's right. I mean, scream forever that the thylacine was extinct. Now, I mean, thanks in large part to people like Forrest Galante who have not let it die. Who said, so pardon the pun, who just kept up with, hey, this thing is still out there. But to that counterpoint, he's one of the ones that'll say, he believed all wholeheartedly that the thylacine was still a creature that was alive and had what, but he'll be one of the ones that say, "Oh no, there's no such thing as Bigfoot and it couldn't exist." But yet he'll champion it. So, that's kind of the definition of what's the word I'm looking for? Hypocrite, so to speak. Like the people who say, "Oh yeah, I believe in ghosts, but there's no such thing as Bigfoot or aliens," or "I believe in aliens, but there's no such thing." How can you believe something like that exists and not believe that there's a possibility that these other things exist? I can't understand how you can be as open minded to say, "Well, I believe in aliens, but Bigfoot." That's ridiculous.
I heard a interesting story just the other day. Apparently, two guys came to the United States on vacation. They were Japanese, and they wanted to go fishing in Yellowstone. They'd been planning it for a long time. They rented a cabin in Yellowstone. They brought brought all their gear. They got all the paperwork they needed so they could fish in the United States, and they found a spot that had a guide take them to, and they sat out there for a couple of days just having the time of their lives fishing. And when they left, when they were leaving, they went up to the guide and the rangers and were thanking them and telling them how much they enjoyed it. And they're like, "Well, what'd you think of the park?" I'm like, "Oh, this is absolutely beautiful. I couldn't believe the variety of wildlife you have here. We don't get to see this much wildlife in Japan. I mean, just this sheer numbers and the size of some of it." And they're like, "Well, thank you. We've got a huge biodiversity here." And one of them looked at the park ranger and goes, "And we never knew you had gorillas in America." And the guy's like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, 3 or 4 times while we were fishing, we saw gorillas on the other side of the river. Like, there are no gorillas in Yellowstone." And we're like, "Well, that's what these look like."
But those Japanese men were not jaded like we are here in the States, and it wasn't taboo for them to say they saw this. So they were just saying what they saw and what it naturally looked like to them.
Yeah, we didn't know there were apes in America.
Yeah, just like all the Native American tribes is like, it's a known fact, and they're not jaded, and it's not taboo to them.
There's a quote from my favorite, Carl Kolchak. When it comes to these legends, like the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, the Headless Horseman, battlefield ghosts, haunted carriages, or the Lincoln Death Train, when you're faced with something like this, there's a fantastic quote from Carl Kolchak, and to me, it's stuck with me over the years. It says, "Judge for yourself the believability, and then try to tell yourself, wherever you may be, that it can't happen here." Love that quote.
That's a very good quote.
And I can tell you from experience, it can happen here. If it happens here in Missouri, it's happening in other places. Whether that cryptids, paranormal, or even in Robbie's case, a UFO sighting along the Niagara River Valley, an hour and a half from where I'm sitting right at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And they were out for a Bigfoot outing and had a UFO encounter. So you just never know. You might go out looking for one thing, but run into another thing entirely. That's why whenever we go out, well, no matter what we're doing, where we're at, what location, we look for evidence and then try to figure out what that is indicative of. We don't go out there specifically looking for, say, Bigfoot and only looking for Bigfoot sign. If we find a well, like in the case of Joe Bald, when he found a 7-inch freaking canine print, that kind of changed what we were looking for. So now we go out and just look for evidence of whatever's there, and then build from there.
Yep.
Folks, it is coming up on the 10 o'clock hour, and I have had a great time talking about these creepy old legends. But that's a great thing to remember. I mean, if you find yourself walking one of these backcountry roads and you're alone and it's dark and you hear the sounds of hoofbeats coming up behind you, it might be more than you think it is. Keep an open mind, folks, because just because you don't believe in the supernatural does not mean it's not out there. What is it Nance says on her show? Absence of proof is not proof of absence.
It's absolutely fact. You cannot disprove a negative.
Arlen says it says DA Kentucky is a big slab of limestone with a little dirt on top and a lot of water. That describes Missouri. Missouri's famous for its limestone caves. Mr. Anderson says we have an area here where a group of natives went missing, and the paranormal activity is still active to this day. Well, look at any old map. Robbie and I have talked about this a bunch of times. Look at any old map, and you'll see places like, well, in Missouri alone, you'll find Devil's Den, Devil's Spine, the Devil's Kitchen, Werewolf Springs in was that Kentucky?
Tennessee.
You'll find places like these, especially the old plat maps. You'll find all these like Wild Man Springs or Booger County, Missouri, which is what they call Douglas County. Those are called that for a reason. And just because you don't believe doesn't mean there's not some truth to that story. And folks, watch this week for release details for Robbie's new book. Robbie, you want to tell us a little bit about that book before we fade out?
This will be book 4. It's still tied into DA and my greater universe, but it's steps back in time quite a bit. I think it tells a pretty interesting story that I think y'all are gonna like. It's set in 18th century Scotland, 1753. I think is that the year we just.
I think so. Yeah.
So 1753 Scotland takes place in the lowlands and the highlands, mostly in the highlands. And it's got a lot of Scottish lore to it. It's got some Norse tie-ins. Have some new characters, but it'll have some familiar characters in there for people who are really sharp-eyed. Got to be sharp to catch it, but it's there. DA's doing layouts. You're in layouts now, right?
Yeah, working on layouts and formatting.
And Lucas pretty much got the cover nailed down. Just waiting on DA to finish that, so we get a final word count or page count, not word count. Get a final page count so I can get to her. I've got everything set up in KDP, so whenever DA gets the 2 copies back to me and she gets the cover done, So hoping this week or maybe the first of next week it should be out. And the title, Toshi, the title of the book is called Howl of the Night Wolf. And like DA mentioned earlier, I'm not one to sit around on my hands, so I've already started. And I'm already 5.5 chapters into that. So, and this one comes back into the modern times. And the title of that one, the working title, is Grail Blood Oath.
And you guys are going to like it. I think you guys are really going to like it, because we got got a lot of cool stuff coming your way in the very near future.
The tie-ins mentioned in both books are going to start coming a lot more now, because we're starting to really flow with stuff. And those of you who tune in on Monday Night Mayhem, you've already seen some tie-ins. You may not have known it, but you've already seen some tie-ins.
Some things are going to make a lot of sense when you read them.
Yep. So we're both excited. We've been doing a lot of brainstorming.
Sure have
here lately. So we got a lot of good stuff in the works for y'all. I think you're gonna like them. We hope you do. This is kind of like what we were talking about. It's almost like this was meant to be, because stuff that he wrote 13 years ago is
coming into effect now.
And it's just, but everything is just, we had no intentions until I was book 3.
I didn't know Robbie when I started writing.
But I was in book 3 before we finally decided how we could tie things in, and things that I've written in book 1 just naturally worked and were allowing us to do that. So it's like it was meant to be. So
I agree.
We got some good stuff coming, and it's building towards a Avengers style blow up at the end.
It's going to be big, and it'll span several books across multiple series.
Mm-hmm.
Arlen says, DA, I can't wait until this Monday night book is finished so I can buy it. Well, it's coming right along. I mean, and make sure you guys join us Monday as we continue with chapter 3 and getting ready to crank the action up a notch. If you guys haven't watched any of the Monday Mayhem, it's an exercise in interactive storytelling. You guys get to help shape the story, creating names for characters, deciding which direction the story is going, what kind of scene we're going to write. And it's a big glimpse behind the curtain where you guys get to be part of the writing process. And we'd love to have you join us.
And that's another thing. When you started this, zero intentions for this to be something that was helping as a tie-in, but just as you started writing, it just started kind of unfolding, and we were both kind of like, the gears started turning, like, hey, this explains why this was here, and this is a perfect tie-in already, and we're just, it just is. So this is kind of an origin to the origin to the origin, if you want to call it that way. But it just
Robin will definitely keep you in our prayers. And Cajun, thank you for the super chat, brother. Appreciate that. Anything else we need to add?
Now you're getting close on.
I just lost Robbie. Oh, I guess he'll be back in a minute. But yeah, I'm getting close to finishing. It threw me off too. What the heck? I'm getting close to finishing.
Both off.
Getting close to finishing Dark Frontiers, Mountain Devil of the Absarokas. I'll hope to have release information for you guys real soon, because when Luke is done working on his cover, she's doing mine. So we'll hopefully have some release information with for both books within the next week or so. Have everything done out and ready for you guys to read. my next project is going to be codename Wild Hunt Leviathan Down. And on the heels of that, it's going to be another Apex Predator book that I haven't named yet. And if you guys would like to be part of the naming process on that, I'm going to put something on the Patreon, and we're gonna share that with everybody and see if we can get some input on coming up with a good name for it. But with this one, I think it's going to be fun. And then after that one, probably another Lakeview Man novel. Probably that one's going to be called Return to Blunk Road.
And after I'm finished with Grail Blood Oath, depending on how things work out with my brother, because he's doing some stuff for me on this one, might go into the next series, which is Shadow Hunters, and that'll be a good one. So we've got a lot of stuff.
Yes, we definitely do.
Lined up for y'all.
Folks, don't forget to show a little love to our affiliates. Dark Angel Medical, best med kits in the business. Remember, the time chooses you, so make sure you get a kit and be prepared, because you never know when you're going to need a kit. DarkAngelMedical.com, discount code Cryptid20 for 20% off. Check out the good folks over at Scallywag Tactical. Use discount code DARoberts10 for 10% off your order. Fantastic blades. Make sure you check them out. And check out our most recent of affiliates. That's the good folks over at Sigwo Arms. Sigwo Arms, SigwoArms.com. We have a discount code with them. It's Bigfoot5. Check them out. You can get a AR-15 made in the codename Wild Hunt style, which I've got one right down here. Let me see if I can put this bad boy up where y'all can see it. I still need to darken that in, but it looks really good. Just reach out to Cody at SigwoArms.com, and he can hook you up. They do pistols as well. There's really not much end to what they can do. So reach out to them, let them know what you're interested in. And again, use discount code Bigfoot5 for 5% off. So folks, thank you guys for hanging out with us. We had an awesome time. We really enjoy doing this. Hope you guys will join us on Saturday night when we're going to be talking about parallel universes, alternate realities, and the Mandela effect. I think that's going to be a fantastic show. I think you guys are going to really like it. And also make sure you join us on Monday with Monday Mayhem as we continue the story. And really gave the folks who were watching some homework, and we'll see where this story goes, because it's a group story. We're kind of telling it together. So hopefully see you guys then.
Did you see Cajun's comment?
Have Clark reading Robbie's book when he gets the call. Thanks, Wyatt. But again, folks, thank you guys for hanging out with us. I want to make sure that I mention the 22 a day foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that's 22 too many. It also affects our first responders. The PTSD is a horrible, horrible thing. I know, because I deal with it myself. But folks, check on your first responder and veteran friends and family. Check on, even if they're still on active duty, let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care, because the toll it takes on these men and women in uniform is tremendous. So especially check on the ones you think don't need it, because a lot of times they're the ones that need it the most. Some days it's hard to deal with those demons. But in at least 22 times a day, those demons are winning. So folks, don't let the hard days win. Go to mission22.org if you're a veteran, or odmp.com if you're a first responder, and there is help available. But folks, don't face these demons alone. You wouldn't go into battle alone. You go in with your teammates. You go in with your squad. So don't face these alone either. And just remember, we would rather hear your story than read your obituary. Reach out, get some help, and let's get 22 a day down to 0. And that's where it needs to be and where it needs to stay. Having said that, I'm going to ask my brother here, Mr. Robbie, if he would take us out with the toast. Let me bring that toast up, and he'll let him take it from here, and he will wind it down.
All right, everybody, raise a glass with us. Don't matter what you're drinking; could be anything. This is from an old Irish drinking song, and at first glance, you might think it's saying goodnight to those there at the bar, but when you look a little bit deeper, it's like D.A. was saying, it's saying goodbye to those who've moved on past this world, and those hopefully you will see again one day. So raise a glass. But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call, good night and joy be to you all. Good night, everybody. Slán Jamá.
Slán Jamá. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you on the next one. Y'all have a blessed evening, and thank you guys so much. Good night, everyone.
Plains, the winds are howling, saloon doors swinging, shadows growling. Three lawmen stand tough as rawhide. Yeah, Doc and DA, nothing can abide. Whiskey shots and poker faces, staring down the darkest spaces in this town where legends roam. These boys bring justice, sending evil home. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rains. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night. Jed's a howler, claws of steel, Doc's a biter, makes a devil real. But DA's a shifty one, a shape-shifting soul, can turn to anything, takes any form, takes control. Tonight the chupacabras come to town, sucking the life from all around. But these lawmen, they ain't afraid, they'll face the darkness unafraid. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rain. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night. Bat wings flap, the air grows cold, a chill and trap. But these lawmen, they're ready to fight underneath the pale moonlight. Jed and Doc transform with a howl, DA shifts, becomes a night owl. Together they stand, a force so strong against the evil right in the road. Cryptid lawmen, wild and free, hunting monsters for all to see. With silver bullets and grit of steel, they fight the darkness, make the demons squeal. From dusty canyons to moonlit plains, justice rides with wind and rains. Cryptid lawmen, a fearsome sight, standing tall against the endless night.